All right, here we are, week 15, our final normal week before things start getting a little bit weird around here. Next week, week 16, is also going to be pretty normal. I'm just not treating that Saturday doubleheader as primetime games. After that, we've got week 17, which is Christmas week, so that'll be another People's Choice week. Look out for the poll going up soon about which teams matchup I do a drink for in that. And I don't know what I'm doing for week 18 yet, but enough about the future. Tampa Bay's representative this week is going to take us back into the past for some grog. Now, how's that for a segue? Anyways, we did rum for Tampa Bay all the way back in week 2, so what's the difference between rum and grog? At its most basic, grog is just Navy-strength rum that's been diluted down a bit to avoid getting the sailors too drunk. However, shortly after its inception, the British Navy started adding lime juice to their rum in order to combat scurvy, which is also where the limey nickname for British people comes from. As a result, there's no one single origin or recipe for grog, and the tradition of British sailors being issued a daily ration of rum dates all the way back to 1665, with the story being that it was named after British Admiral Vernon, aka Old Grogram, who started watering down the rum and giving it to his sailors in 1740. However, historians contest that 1740 story, and so it almost certainly dates back sometime to before then. In addition to the historical grog, there are plenty of variants and drinks that borrow its distinctive name. There are the relatively tame, even historical modifications to grog, such as sweetening it with sugar or honey syrup. Then, of course, there are the tiki cocktails that borrow its name, such as the Don Beach/Trader Vic's Navy grog. And then finally, there's even the hard soda made by Cold Ones, which is completely unrelated to historical grog, except for some weird etymological connections. But speaking of hard sodas, Atlanta's representative for this matchup is none other than Coke itself. Look, it might be a worldwide behemoth, but there's no denying the deep connection between Atlanta and Coca-Cola. The company was incorporated in Atlanta in 1892, it's got its headquarters there. Hell, it even has its flagship museum, the World of Coke, located in Atlanta. I also don't think I need to tell anybody about Coca-Cola. 1.8 billion servings are consumed daily. Hell, it even created the category of colas. So instead, I'll just drop a little fun fact before moving on to our mashup. The name Coca-Cola comes from the fact that the original recipe famously incorporated caffeine from cola leaves and cocaine from coca leaves. Now, the reason this soda originally had cocaine in it was because back in 1886 when it was created, cocaine was believed to be a treatment for morphine addiction. So for me at least, the natural combination of these two drinks is essentially an extra strong Cuba Libre. In case you don't know what a Cuba Libre is, it's just a rum and coke that has some lime juice added into it, so next time you're at the bar, you can have that as your drink order and seem extra classy. I also don't technically have Navy strength rum, so instead our spec is going to be 2 ounces of our OFTD overproof rum. So this is part of why this is going to be an extra strong Cuba Libre. The other part we will get to later when you see sort of what the final glass that we're serving this drink in is. Then ½ an ounce of our simple syrup. Now you can also use a honey syrup if you want for this. I'll probably be trying that when I make this drink the second time to, take a pretty picture of it. It's just gonna slightly change up the flavor of it, add a couple of those floral honey notes. But by using just a pure, simple syrup, we're just keeping this really plain, really straightforward, nothing too crazy. And then finally, ½ an ounce of our lime juice. So our core spec right here. Essentially, it is kind of like a base of a sour, when you think about it like that. Got our sweet, got our booze, got our sour. All right, then we're gonna shake that up. Nice crisp break. And then we're gonna strain that into a rocks glass. So this is where the sort of extra strong part comes in. Instead of doing this in like a highball, like you would normally sort of get a Cuba Libre, I wanted to do it over a rocks glass to sort of preserve that more of that grog thing. I didn't want to water this down too much. So the reason I put this in a rocks glass instead of a highball glass, which is like what you would normally get if you ordered a Cuba Libre, is because I didn't want to dilute it down too much with our final ingredient, Coke. And of course, I've got a lovely little glass bottle Coke here. So this is a Mexican one that's been made with, you know, actual sugar. Just gonna float that over top. It's arguably even less Coke than I actually wanted in this, but c'est la vie. See. God, that's good stuff. All right. And now this is a grog that Coke has been added to. So of course I had to call this one the Groke. Let's give it a try. Whew. Oh yeah, that is strong. That is punchy. That like fire of the OFTD rum grabs your face right away. It's a funky little flavor combination though. Like the more time it sort of has to sit, the more a lot of those sort of, you know, baking spice notes that are in this OFTD rum, those really start to sort of rise up. Let me have another sip. I'm gonna pause a little bit and then take another sip. Sort of give this Coke a little bit more time to percolate through. Because I'm curious, this does, hold on. Ooh, there is almost like a syrupiness to it, which is kind of interesting. I mean, like it's, maybe that's coming, I can't tell if that's coming from the Coke or the simple syrup or that combination of two of them, but it does have like a pretty distinct texture to it where it is like you can feel that syrupy sort of coating on your tongue from it. And it does really like, it definitely needs the sugar to help offset just how incredibly punchy this OFTD rum is. You know, so for context, right, your standard base spirit rum would be anywhere from sort of 40% up to like 46%. A Navy strength rum, so as I mentioned way back in the week 2 video, is around like 50 to like low 60% ABV. This OFTD rum is 69%, so it is like truly an overproof rum. And so we're getting a lot more sort of, you know, fire, just that alcohol burn than you would get if you would use an actual Navy strength rum in this. But it's not bad. There is enough, you know, sweetness and enough acid in there from the lime juice and the simple syrup and the Coke to kind of cut things a little bit. And I think this is really one of those drinks where the more it sits and the more all four of our sort of, you know, key ingredients here can really meld with each other and sort of, you know, homogenize, the better this drink is, because those like, the sort of cola notes, they start pulling out, like the cola notes and the baking spice notes from this rum, those are really the two dominant ones. The lime juice actually comes through less in this than I thought it would. Like there's certainly a case to be made here, especially with the additional sweetness that we're adding in from the Coke, to go up to like 3/4 of an ounce of that lime juice, just to give this drink a little bit more kick and a little bit more variety in the mouthfeel. Right now it is actually like, it's funny for a drink that's clearly so boozy, right? Like there's no hiding the amount of alcohol in this drink. You know it's strong from the very first sip. But it's funny for a drink that's so boozy to also kind of be so syrupy. It does like, in many ways, what this kind of has the effect of, it's not actually great, and it probably would benefit from being lengthened out and served up in a highball. It kind of has the feeling of like when you go and you're at a vending machine, or you're at a soda machine, and it's like a really syrupy, rich soda, where you're not quite getting as much carbonation, you're really getting a lot more of that syrup. That's kind of the effect this drink is having, because obviously you have less carbonation because only a very small portion of this drink is carbonated, but you've got more syrup, and so you've got that sort of effect going on. Yeah, ultimately, this drink is pretty much like, I'd say living up to expectations, but like the expectations were low. This is, I will freely admit, like this is a drink I came up with because I knew it would be a solid drink, and it feels like the most sort of faithful combination of these two, and I tried I tried to make it as interesting as I could by not, over diluting this drink down with the Coke. But at the end of the day, there's just not a whole lot going on, You're getting sort of, the main flavor profile of this OFTD rum combined with that of the Coke. And it's just producing, a really sort of strong yet drinkable little drink. My brain's kind of struggling a little bit because this is just so simple. It can't really find much to latch onto and talk about. It just kind of keeps hitting the notes of like, it's strong, it's not very, it's strong, it's pretty sweet, and there's not really a whole lot else to it. Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not going to have any trouble finishing this. I may have made a mistake in having this be the first video I shoot today. I'm going to try to shoot 3 today, so... Oh boy, we'll see if I come to regret that decision. Yeah, not a whole lot to talk to. It's not particularly good. It's not particularly bad. It very much feels like something, like this tastes... this tastes a lot like the rum and cokes that I've ordered, many nights out. I think the main difference is those tasted sort of, too strong, but also too syrupy because they were using sort of really bottom shelf rums, and probably also not the best Coke. In this case, we've almost created a similar effect, but from the opposite end, where we're using a very good overproof rum, and certainly, on the nicer end of Cokes that you can get out there. But the end result is still that kind of like really boozy, but also really sweet, classic rum and Coke flavor combination. All right, well, I'm going to go finish this drink and try to stay upright, and in the meantime, we will see which of these teams remain standing in the simulation. The Buccaneers start with the ball and immediately go 3 and out, but so do the Falcons, so it all cancels out. Tampa's second attempt stalls out at the 35-yard line as Egbuka has the ball knocked out of his hands on 3rd and 17. The Bucs bring out McLaughlin for the 52-yarder, and he hits it for the first points of the game. At the end of the first quarter, Atlanta finally finds its offense as Bijan dodges Levante David and takes off into the open field, outrunning the safety and taking this one 41 yards to the house. The Falcons strike again late in the second quarter as the offensive line opens up another hole and Bijan bounces off DBs for his second touchdown. With 35 seconds left, the Bucs answer back before half as Baker hits Godwin on the out route for a 6-yard score. That touchdown makes it Atlanta 14, Tampa Bay 10 at the half. And as we return from halftime, please enjoy a brief bit of Kyle Pitts trying to desperately run out of the stadium despite being ahead by 4. Thankfully for the Falcons, he returned as Kirko hits him across the middle on the dig route for a 23-yard touchdown. The Bucs are down but not out at the end of the third quarter as Rashad White breaks tackles and somehow surges forward for an 8-yard touchdown. Looking to make it a 3-point game, Tampa goes for 2, and this time it's Bucky Irving who takes it right up the middle for the conversion. The Falcons make it into Tampa territory, but the Bucs come up big on 3rd down, breaking up a pass intended for Jamal Agnew. As a result, they bring out Gonzalez, who hits the 48-yarder to extend Atlanta's lead to 6. However, Baker loves himself a fourth quarter comeback, and he drives the Bucs all the way down to the 2-yard line, where it's back to Bucky to punch in the go-ahead touchdown. That causes Kirk to start playing like it's 2022, flying the Falcons into field goal range. With 40 seconds left, he drops back to pass on 3rd down and is immediately flattened by Bullock, and Tampa takes their final timeout. With the game on the line, Gonzalez hits the 43-yarder, putting the Falcons back in front. A solid return has Tampa starting at their 36-yard line, and on the very first play, Baker hits a streaking Egbuka who flies downfield, putting them well within field goal range when he's finally dragged out of bounds at the 15. With 5 seconds left on the clock, McLaughlin gets to play the hero by hitting the 31-yard chip shot. However, there's 2 seconds left, so that means one final Hail Mary. Kirk hangs in the pocket and heaves a prayer, which is immediately answered in the form of classic Madden cheese, the Hail Mary defensive pass interference. That penalty spots them an untimed down at the 11-yard line, and the final field goal of the game is a 27-yarder to snatch a win for the Falcons, 30-28. Well, if we remove that incredibly unlikely Hail Mary pass interference and ensuing field goal, this is a 28-27 Buccaneers victory, which is still far tighter than this matchup will likely be. Obviously, the Falcons still have good players on the roster, but there's simply too many issues on both sides of the ball to take down Tampa. Hell, the Falcons are 1-6 in the last 7 weeks, and that lone win came against the tanking Saints. I see the Bucs getting a solid win here as they look to hold on to their spot atop the NFC South. Two nearly identical quarterback performances in this one, both threw for a single touchdown and no interceptions. Baker had the slight edge in passing yards, throwing for 246 yards to Kirk's 228, despite Kirk having 2 more pass attempts. Just 2 slightly above average, but profoundly unremarkable performances from both of these QBs. Moving on to the running backs, we get a slightly more interesting set of stats. Well, okay, not that much more interesting. Bucky Irving had a profoundly average performance, running 15 times for 60 yards on the dot with a single touchdown. Now for most running backs, 116 yards and 2 touchdowns would be a great week, but Bijan has had 4 games with over 100 rushing yards, so this is just an above average game. Perhaps more surprising is the fact that he's only had a single game with 2 rushing touchdowns this season, as Tyler Algier has gobbled up basically all of his goal line touches. Speaking of goal line touches, Rachaad White had a single 8-yard touchdown carry in this game, just the pinnacle of efficiency. It's perhaps unsurprising that a game of unremarkable quarterback performances produces a set of unremarkable receiving stats. Chris Godwin and Sterling Shepard both saw the lion's share of targets, bringing in 8 and 6 catches respectively, but put up similar yardage to Egbuka, who only had 3 receptions. The Falcons spread the ball around a lot more, with nobody having more than 5 catches. Their 3 main options, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Darnell Mooney, all had basically identical receiving yards, 57, 64, and 54. Down at the bottom of the stat sheet, we have 6 different players, all with a single catch, just a real testament to how much the ball got spread around. Perhaps the most interesting on that list is the Falcons' 3rd-string tight end, Tegan Quitoriano, who has all of 9 catches in his entire career and has not had a single catch this season. As the 3rd tight end, he did not make the cut for the Monte Carlo sim, but I doubt that affects much. Both quarterbacks actually had really similar performances to their Madden counterparts, with Kirk averaging 212 yards and Baker's average only 0.85 yards off his showing in that sim. That means the receiving stats are also pretty similar as well, so the biggest change is with the running backs. Bucky gets a 25-yard boost up to 85 yards, while Bijan gets nerfed down to 80 yards. As you can see in the score distribution, that offense resulted in a similar set of scores to what we saw in the Madden sim, with a 28-21 Buccaneer victory the most likely outcome. This is actually a pretty much perfectly symmetrical distribution around that mode, so averaging out all 10,000 simulated games literally does not change things at all. It's still 28-21 Tampa Bay. Do you agree with the simulation, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the extra strong Cuba Libre, aka the Groke. If you make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.